Welcome back to the GSMC College Football Podcast presented to you by the GSMC Network. Before we get into anything else, I just want to remind everyone that this show is all about you. We love hearing your thoughts, your questions, your opinions as we dive into the latest sports action. Whether you've got a burning question, bold prediction, just want to shout out your favorite player, don't hold back, drop it in the chat. If you want to make sure that your message really stands out, why don't you use the super chat feature? Just click the $ at the bottom of the chat box to send in your message. It's a surefire way to get our attention. We are so grateful for your help, your support here at the GSMC Network to keep bringing you the sports content that you love. And we are so glad to have you as a part of our community here. Now, before we talk a little bit about Maxx Crosby, Anthony had a question about what my thoughts are on the Nico Iamaleava situation and where I think he lands. He also asked, is it confirmed that he already signed a transfer NIL deal with North Carolina? So the North Carolina thing first, I have not seen anything confirmed. I know that was kind of discussed about that he was maybe going to Chapel Hill, teaming up with Bill Belichick. I saw that might not actually be the case. I'd be kind of surprised, honestly, if he did end up at North Carolina. I kind of think Bill Belichick wants to stay hands off of that whole situation there, especially as his first year as a college coach. I don't know if he kind of wants that in the locker room, just the whole contract negotiations and all of that. I think as he transitions to college, I don't know if he really wants that kind of situation in his locker room at Chapel Hill. I really think the big school that I'm looking at right now for Nico is UCLA. He's from Long Beach, kind of from that area. His brother Madden was committed to UCLA for a long time, ended up flipping on signing day, flipped to Arkansas. But UCLA, I think, is a school that makes a lot of sense for Nico. Don't really have an established starter at quarterback right now. I think they'd be a little more willing to give him the contract that he wants. I have seen a couple other schools that they've kind of talked about. Notre Dame was getting thrown out as a school. I don't really see them going after Nico, kind of approaching him. They already have a couple different quarterbacks that they like at Notre Dame, where I'm not sure if that's actually a place that would make sense for him. I don't know also if it's a culture fit. UCLA is really the big one I'm looking at right now for Nico. I could certainly see North Carolina. I think that one's a little more far-fetched. I don't know if that's the right word, but I think that's a little more unlikely to happen than I think something like a UCLA or another West Coast school like that. I think that's probably a little more likely for Nico, but we're going to wait and see. That's going to be a really interesting one to look at, especially the portal opens officially tomorrow. But there's not a lot of teams right now that really need a quarterback. Most of the teams that kind of had quarterback questions going into this season address that in the winter portal. I don't blame Nico for the situation. Blame Tennessee. I agree. Yeah, they set the precedent, so they can't really blame themselves, or they can't really blame Nico for kind of asking for more money. They are the program that kind of set this whole thing in motion. They gave him that $8 million deal before he even stepped on campus in Knoxville. I wasn't really surprised. Washington or Stanford. Both of those, I think, are solid options for Nico. I think Washington might be a little more likely just in terms of resources and NIL deals. Obviously, Stanford does have Andrew Luck in charge there. It seems like they're trying to build back up that program. I don't know if they'd want to spend, $3 or $4 million on a quarterback, though. They're kind of a little more. They keep their money a little more close to the chest. They don't really give it out as much like that. I think Washington, though, that actually is a program that would make a lot of sense for Nico. Obviously, he's still going to stay. He would be in the Big Ten, still stay in a power conference, and go back to the West Coast. I hadn't thought about Washington, honestly, but thinking about it, it does make a lot of sense. That could be a really good landing spot for him, especially just trying to compete in the Big Ten. Obviously, he would be an upgrade for them. I think that would make a lot of sense as a potential landing spot for Nico. So, we are going to switch gears a little bit, talk about Maxx Crosby. So it came out that he was now taking a front office role for Eastern Michigan, becoming an assistant general manager for their football program. He's the first active NFL player to kind of do this, which is really intriguing. You've seen a couple guys from the NBA do this: Steph Curry, Trae Young, Terrence Mann. They're all now assistant GMs for their college basketball programs. But this is really the first time that this has happened for an active NFL player. And it's kind of interesting. I kind of wonder what actually he's going to do. So, reportedly, his new role involves evaluating prospects, managing the NIL budget, as well as just supporting student athletes, and leading alumni relations and fundraising events. All seems kind of vague to me. Not really sure what actually his role will be, but obviously this is Eastern Michigan's most successful NFL player in a long time. He set their school record. He had 20 career sacks from 2016 to 2018 when he was at Eastern Michigan. He's also really taken a lead in trying to build up that program. 2023, him and his wife Rachel, they donated $1 million to Eastern Michigan's athletic department, which led to the football field being named in his honor. He also launched a fundraising campaign pledging to match donations up to $100,000 through May, just trying to build up support for the Eastern Michigan football program. And, despite this new role, he's obviously still committed to the NFL, just signed a big extension with the Raiders this offseason. Had been in trade rumors for a couple years, but is going to be in Vegas for a while. And this is kind of an interesting move. I like it. I think it makes sense for guys like Maxx Crosby that, came from smaller programs, came from programs from conferences like the MAC, to try to build up those schools. They're obviously kind of in a tough spot right now where, the Power 2 conferences, the Power 4, they're really starting to separate themselves even more. And then, if you have a really good kid, a really strong performer at an Eastern Michigan or at a Kent State or an Akron, one of those schools, they're probably going to end up leaving after they have a strong year. Another program's going to end up giving them more money, and they're going to leave that conference, they're going to leave that school. I kind of like it, though. I think it makes a lot of sense for, schools like Eastern Michigan to get their former athletes involved in this. Maxx Crosby is going to be the guy that, that's going to drive the market for Eastern Michigan, that's going to drive recruiting, is having a guy that you can go, hey, look at him. He had success here in 2 or 3 years. He became an NFL starter, an NFL star. This is something that you can do at this program too. I wonder if we're going to start seeing a little more of this just throughout college football, especially with programs like this. I don't know if it's really going to be a thing at, Georgia or an Ohio State or an Alabama where, they already have really strong NFL connections. There's no need to sell the program. There's no need to have to drum up more NIL support because it's kind of already been established. You're going to have boosters that are going to give to the program. You're going to have guys that are going to go to that school purely because of the NFL production, trying to get to the next level. Eastern Michigan, they've kind of been mediocre in the MAC the past couple of years. They finished 5-7 last year, didn't make a bowl game. They finished 6-7 the year before. They did make a bowl game. They got blown out by South Alabama, like 59-10. The other thing I was kind of questioning with this is, will Maxx Crosby actually kind of have any impact on recruiting for Eastern Michigan? I think that's probably the biggest kind of question mark around these kind of rules, is just what do they actually do for recruiting these kids? And I think particularly in the Las Vegas area, obviously Maxx Crosby playing there right now, is that going to be almost where he's kind of an area scout? I don't know. I kind of doubt it. But I could see something like that where, he gives them a couple guys from the Vegas area that he's heard about and say, hey, maybe you go look at this kid. Will that actually kind of affect recruiting, how they approach getting players? Obviously, schools like that, the MAC schools, they're really going for local programs, local players for the most part. That's going to be where a lot of their guys are from. So is this going to kind of be something where Maxx Crosby actually does affect anything? He's a Michigan kid too. I don't remember exactly where from in Michigan, but obviously Michigan kid went to Eastern Michigan. That's kind of the trend for those MAC programs, is you get the local kids and you try to develop them and hope that in a couple years that they're, solid contributors, starters to your program. But I'm really looking at what's this going to do for, are they going to try to expand into Vegas, try to get some of those kids? Are they going to try to get some Cali kids from the West Coast? I think that's going to be kind of an interesting thing. And then also, will this give Eastern Michigan a leg up in the MAC in terms of them competing in their conference? No other MAC teams kind of have a guy like this right now that's doing anything similar. So I wonder, is this going to be something where Eastern Michigan actually gets a leg up because of Maxx Crosby, or is it kind of just something that happens in the news cycle and, it won't really affect anything on a day-to-day basis? That's going to be the big thing here. I don't know. I think we're going to find out. I kind of wonder how these assistant GM roles actually work, if that's going to be something that is staying power. Will that be a trend that continues in the next few years? I think it probably will. And I think each program will probably kind of have different roles and expectations for those GMs. But we're going to take another break on the show now. And when we come back, we're going to go a little Big Ten, talk a little bit about Indiana and their upcoming season. But we'll be back shortly on the GSMC College Football Podcast.